It's the opening night of the Toronto Film Festival. I'm glad to see you all here to kick off the festival. My name is Cameron Bailey. I'm the artistic director at TIFF. I'm glad to see you for another year. This is the 43rd Toronto International Film Festival, and we're here to watch the world premiere of the new film from Thomas Vinterberg, Kursk. I want to begin by acknowledging the land that we are on. This is the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of the New Credit and the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and Huron-Wendat First Nations. We're grateful to have the opportunity to live and work in the community. Really happy to be presenting the world premiere of Kursk here in the visa screening room at the Princess of Wales Theatre. We are fortunate, I think, to be able to present movies on the big screen in such beautiful surroundings with a giant screen and state-of-the-art presentation. So thank you to everyone who made that possible. A reminder, perhaps your first reminder, that this film is eligible for the Grolsch People's Choice Award. That's the award that you decide. So please vote for the films of your choice, and you can vote at tiff.net/vote. Big thank you to EuropaCorp for providing us with the film, and thanks also to Unifrance for their support of all of the films with French participation at the festival. Thomas Vinterberg is someone whose films I've been following for many years, and I imagine many of you have as well. He was born in Copenhagen and graduated from the National Film School of Denmark. He co-founded the Dogma 95 movement, one of the most important movements in recent contemporary cinema, and he directed the first film of the Dogma movement, Celebration, in 1998, Festen, and that screened at the festival. Yes, give it up for Festen. If you haven't seen it, you have to see it. It's really one of the most influential films of the last, well, now 20 years. He also directed Dear Wendy, The Hunt, and The Commune, all of which showed at TIFF. His other features include Submarino and Far from the Madding Crowd. And when you watch a Thomas Vinterberg film, what you really see is the cinema of social groups. His films are about families, groups of friends, towns, and in this case, a unit of a team of naval operators. In his films, you see what happens when social groups are bonded by unity. You see what happens when betrayal begins to fracture the social group, and you see when love and higher principles bring them together. He's been doing that for many years. I think he is one of the most remarkable and most accomplished filmmakers working, and he's here to introduce Kursk to you tonight. Please join me in welcoming Thomas Vinterberg.
Thanks for these wonderful, kind words, and keep yelling. I love it. It's really nice. I've got some people with me tonight, some actors, beautiful actors. Let's bring on stage beautiful Léa Seydoux from France. And with us, we also have Matthias Schoenaerts. Also, we want to introduce you to a new little fella who's going to help me make a little speech. And he's called Artemiy Spiridonov. Here he comes. Good evening, Art. Just stay in the middle. Good evening, Art. How are you?
Good.
Great.
Great.
So, are you ready for this?
Yes.
Today, the world is filled with mistrust between nations and between continents.
В мире, в котором мы живем, царит недоверие между странами и континентами.
Yeah, give it up. Power corrupts, fear of the others make even the powerful blind.
Страх ослепляет даже сильных мира сего.
But there is a world where respect for the life, for the dignity of each individual grows beautifully.
Но, к счастью, есть мир, где уважение к личности играет большую роль.
The world of art and the world of film breaks down the barriers between cultures and languages and bridges the gaps between generations as well. Right, Art?
Мы говорим о мире кино и искусства, которые рушат культурные и языковые барьеры и соединяют поколения. Согласен с тобой, Томас.
It's going well. We're almost done. That's also one of the reasons that Artemiy, who you'll be seeing on the screen in a minute, and myself, and these young gentlemen here and ladies, are especially glad to open our film Kursk here in Canada.
Мы с Томасом... Мы с Томасом особенно рады презентовать наш фильм здесь, в Канаде.
Because as far as we know, no one here is turned away at the airport because of faith, nationality, language, or color of their skin.
И никто здесь не был задержан в аэропорту из-за цвета кожи, языка или веры.
A heartfelt thanks to TIFF, to Cameron, and to his selection committee for this noble opportunity.
Огромное спасибо мистеру Камерону и его команде за приглашение к участию в этом фильме.
Enjoy.
Приятного просмотра!
Going that way, right?
The director of Kursk, Thomas Vinterberg.
Thank you very much. Let me bring on stage Léa Seydoux, Matthias Schoenaerts, Artemiy Spiridonov, and Ariel Setun, the producer of the movie. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, we should talk, right?
Yes, we can talk. I mean, if we can talk, I'm still shaking a little bit from that intense thriller.
Breathe.
Yes, I've got to do it one at a time. Thank you very much for bringing your world premiere of Kursk to us at the festival. Yeah, let's begin. So, what do you know, or what did you know and remember about the Kursk disaster when you first received Robert Rodat's script for Kursk?
The tapping. That's pretty much what I remembered. And the script from Robert Rodat, who's here tonight.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Based on a book by Robert Moore, who's also here tonight. Thank you.
Hello, thank you.
Brought back a horrible but yet beautiful story about not just a tragedy, but also about humanity and love to me. So everything came back when I read the script the first time.
Definitely. And it's one thing to read the story on the page or see it in news broadcasts. How was it to essentially live it? because you recreated this horrible tragedy for us to see.
Well, I was behind a monitor with a coffee, and those guys were in the water. So for me, it was a piece of cake, actually. But tell us about it, Matthias.
Well, it's nothing compared to what the actual navies went through. So I would feel very bad to complain, but it was quite something. Thomas loved it to put us in very specific and awkward circumstances, being wet and claustrophobic, and but shoot.
Well, obviously, our thoughts went to the real families all the time. And we did events and paid respect for them, and there were moments shooting this movie where it was unbearable knowing that this actually happened. Yeah.
Well, that's it. It's this sense of dread, knowing what's going to happen, but somehow it's just incredibly thrilling because you don't know what's going to happen, in every moment, in every explosion. So, I mean, how did you create this pacing with the editing and the sound design, especially?
The editors are here as well. Let's give him a hand.
Valdis Oskarsdottir, Siggy, thank you.
Well, obviously there's editing in the script already. Then that all changes in the editing room, and we wanted the film to have weight and gravitas, and yet still have this pacing and sitting on the edge of the seat, and it was actually quite complicated to find the rhythm of this movie, and I hope it worked.
I think it absolutely did. And I think especially it was great to have those moments of calm away from the submarine, and that was largely in those scenes with Léa Seydoux, but I mean, those still escalated to those still escalated to some chaos. So, how was this experience for you, kind of reliving outside of the submarine?
It was a very, outside the submarine. We were never really outside the submarine because because it's a real story. We were very, we had like this. We were really living the tragedy. So yeah, I was completely. I'm still so moved by this story. So it's. I don't know if. I was just it's. It's easy in a way to be, to feel the pain. It's because it's such a tragedy. So.
Absolutely. And this is the strong sense of community and that you feel kind of within the submarine and outside, is that, these people, they're living this tragedy. So, this kind of speaks to a lot of your own films and community. So,
yeah, this looks exactly like my movies.
Well, it's
pretty far from Dogma, I would say.
I think very far, but 20 years ago, things change in 20 years, definitely. Okay, at this time, I'd like to open up the questioning to the audience. Yes, right in the front here. So the question was for the actors and their preparation, if they spoke to the victims or of the families involved in the tragedy.
No, we didn't, but we watched with Thomas some images some images of the wife, the real wife. So that's the only thing that I really liked, the only material that I had, and but there's also a scene in the film. A scene that is actually sorry, I'm cold. That's why that is real, and you can watch it on YouTube. And it's the scene with the syringe, So it's a real scene, and we exactly shot it as it is on YouTube. So it's really it was like they were real. They were real. Yeah.
So Robert Moore, who wrote the book, obviously spoke to these families and did a lot of research over a long period of time. From his book to the script, we stepped from the real world into fiction. The main character, I would say, is now a representative of all the crew members. Some had children, some hadn't. Some had a wife, some hadn't. Some wrote letters, some didn't. We wanted to pay respect to all of them, but yet still, we also know this is the world of fiction we're stepping into.
Thank you. Okay, over here in the blue shirt. Okay, so the question is for Matthias.
Oh, you mean a specific training to be in a small place for a long period of time? Well, actually, we didn't have a specific training. We visited a real submarine, of course, and we get a very intense insight in the technical specifics. I remember one day Thomas sent me a map consisting of 450 pages of technical specifications of how a submarine works. And I tried to scroll through the first 5 pages, and I was like, I'm not intelligent enough to understand all of this. It's chemics and physics, and but then, of course, I had to do some specific swimming training. As you see in the movie, there's a very specific scene in which we go for the oxygen cartridges. And so I had to train for that to be able to hold my breath as long as I could. So that was quite intense on a physical level. And as far as physical preparation, that was the most, that was the thing that was required.
We brought consultants on set. We had David Russell, the real David Russell, the one played by Colin Firth in the movie, on set with us and in contact with us. We had a Russian consultant who've been working on nuclear submarines. So we knew what all these buttons meant, because I was clueless as well. And sometimes we just had to decide to look at these panels as if they knew knew shit about it, right? But we tried to dig into as thorough a research as we could, but this is an endless road. It's a very long education they have, these.
Because it's important to understand that most of the people on the submarine were actually engineers. They're not just regular soldiers, they're engineers. So that's when I got the map. I was like, this is stuff for engineers. I don't understand any of it. So that's pretty impressive, yeah.
Okay, next question, over in the corner here. Okay, the question is about the change in the aspect ratio.
Well, I just had this idea that when this little submarine disappears in the big ocean, I wanted to emphasize how big a world it is and how lost they were in this big world. And likewise, I felt that when they eventually ran out of time and air and it was all over, I wanted this space to close down on them. I could come with deeper analysis maybe next time. I just thought it was pretty cool.
We thought it was cool too. Okay, next question, over here. So the question is, why did you decide to make this film in English with such an international cast?
First and foremost, because I don't speak Russian. Secondly, because they're going to dub it into Russian anyway. But obviously, this was a big challenge, to take your question serious. It was one of the biggest challenges immediately reading the script. But I found that this story was a universal story, and I found that if we portrayed this as truthful as possible and with as much humbleness and dignity and honesty as possible, the spoken language wouldn't be as important. And I think they accomplished that.
Any more questions? Oh, right in the middle. So the question was if there was a change in the way that you were approaching the film when the political landscape in Russia changed.
Well, obviously, the perspective changes all the time, and the landscape changes, but this, for me, is a film about humanity. It's a universal story about man against bureaucracy. The specific story about the president at that time and what really happened, I'll leave to the investigative journalists. We're here to make stories about human beings and about running out of time. So the political landscape changed, the perspective of the movie changed, but still these topics I find grander than those everyday changes.
Okay, in the middle here.
Well, this is music by Alexandre Desplat, who I love and adore. Give it up for Alexandre Desplat. And obviously, the tapping and the rhythm of the tapping and the ticking clock is an element that came to us. But more importantly, we decided to play hope. There's not much hope on the bottom of the sea, and he kind of found that very naive melody played on a cymbalum, and I immediately fell in love with it. Sounded slightly Russian, but first and foremost, it brought hope. Especially it brought hope to the moment where this young gentleman shows a bit of hope for the future, and he was standing up against Max von Sydow, and the cymbalum comes in, and I love that.
One more? Yes?
No, not really. I mean, Thomas had this idea where I didn't shake his hand and I just slapped him, but
It didn't work. Was that intimidating? Slapping Max von Sydow? It was.
No.
He did well.
I felt good.
Oh, just in the aisle here.
The part where Matthias like saw me swimming up to him and like reaching out for him.
I think that was kind of perfect. I feel like that's the hope that we need to maybe end this, but on that happy note. So thank you very much for bringing this film to... This film is eligible for the Gross People's Choice Award, so please vote if you enjoyed the film as much as I think you did. Thank you. Thank you.